What's up guys, Justin Morgan here, and I wanted to take a video, or use this video to take a brief moment to talk to you about people that make the statement that without steroids, athletes that are at the top of whatever given sport they compete in would still be the athletes at the top of that sport. I don't feel that this is always an accurate statement. There are two primary reasons that I think that. One has to do with the way that steroids actually work in promoting increases in strength for the athlete, the actual neurological capacity that goes into that. And then the second is very similar to it, and that is how much strength is actually obtained from using steroids. In an effort to try to keep this video as short as possible, I'll kind of just cut it down to those bare bone topics, and hopefully I won't go on too long, as I have a tendency to do at times. But first of all, how do steroids actually promote you in becoming a stronger athlete? Or how does that work, say if you're a power lifter or a weightlifter or a strongman competitor? And one really big way is that it reduces fatigue. So someone that is going into a competition, they're probably not going to be doing their hardest sets right up until the day of the competition because they're just going to be a lot more fatigued. That probably is the case whether you're using steroids or not, but steroids, from what I know and what I've read and what I know from my personal experiences and talking with people that were open about steroid use, is that it really improves the amount of work capacity and the amount of healing or recovery that happens from training session to training session. So if you are using steroids, then you can probably go into competitions training a lot harder and having a lot less fatigue than someone that is not using steroids, or if you were not using steroids. Anytime you talk about things like this, it's better if you can keep it on an individual basis, because someone else might not get the results that I'm getting if I might get similar results than someone who's using steroids after an initial kind of phase. So if someone is using steroids, they're usually going to see a really big jump in performance because of added muscle growth. But there will also be a plateau in that to where their progress kind of drops off. So maybe I've been lifting for about 5 years. Is it 5 years? I think I've been lifting for 4 years. And somebody else may have only been lifting for 2 years, but because of steroids, they might really quickly be able to catch up to close to where I'm at. Well, after that initial plateau, or that initial kind of jump in performance that they see though, their results might be very similar to where mine are at right now if they're not using high enough dosages. So they might have gotten to where I'm at in a lot less time, and they may continue to make slightly better progress than I do, but I know from what I've read, from studies, and from people that I know personally that have used steroids, that after kind of an initial phase where they see a lot of growth, a lot of increases in strength and performance in those initial months where they start using steroids, there's usually kind of a drop-off where they stop seeing those really quick, dramatic results. The other thing is the way that neurologically steroids actually promote strength. If someone is using steroids, they're going to see a huge increase in the amount of muscle mass that they grow, and that has a lot to do with why they get stronger. The thing with that though is that there's never 100% carryover from the amount of muscle that they're growing to the amount of strength that they have. So when they've kind of looked at the top IFBB pro bodybuilders that are using large doses of steroids, they kind of found that there was maybe a 50% difference in the amount of muscle that they grow compared to lifters that aren't using it. So maybe almost twice as much muscle is grown through steroids than compared to someone who's not using steroids. Well, that's not the case with strength though. Neurologically, even for a drug-free lifter, it's hard for them to have 100% carryover from every ounce of muscle that they grow to generate that into strength and to generate that into a higher total in the sport that they compete in. Well, when you add in the factor of steroids, that's even more exaggerated. They're able to grow significantly more amounts of muscle, especially, and that makes sense when you're considering that this is an unnatural amount of muscle that the person's carrying. They're not going to be able to generate or to turn all of that muscle growth into strength gains. So those are a couple components of that. Now I want to take the rest of the video to kind of move on to the second reason that I don't feel it's an accurate statement to always say that the top of any given sport without steroids would still be the top of that sport. And that is because I mentioned when I was talking about the role that steroids play in actually making someone stronger, well, there seems to be maybe a 10 to 15% difference in strength. I know people would argue with that, but even if it were higher, even if it were a 20% difference, I think that the amount of strength that the people at the top of the sport are getting from that would bring them down low enough that they would maybe still be in the top 5 within their sport. But when you think about people that are coming in 5th place in powerlifting, national powerlifting meets that may not be using steroids right now, you've never heard of them. You don't know what their names are, and you don't know who they are. Well, the people that are top, the very top lifters in non-drug tested sports, their names are, really well known. If they were to stop using steroids and they drop down into those 3rd, 4th, and 5th place spots, their names really wouldn't be as recognizable anymore. You wouldn't know who they are, so would they still be the top of the sport? Would they still be the top lifters in that sport? Probably not. They would be maybe 3, 4, 5th place. And the people that are currently in some of those spots that may not be using steroids, they would suddenly jump up and be number 1. So that's another really good reason why I don't think it's an accurate statement to say that the people that are coming in 1st place and that are at the top of any given sport, whether that be powerlifting or strongman or whatever the case may be, that they would still be number 1. So those are just some of my ideas about it, some of the things that I was just thinking about this morning as I'm trying to get ready to lift and preparing for things. In terms of my performance and what I do, I usually try to only compare myself to myself. If you would have asked me, say 4 years ago when I started lifting, if I would ever be a 500-pound squatter and be thinking about how I'm going to get to 600 pounds, I wouldn't have thought about it. I wasn't thinking about that then at all. I was thinking about how huge can I get my legs so that I look like Arnold Schwarzenegger or something. Anyway, so that's just how I think. But, now that I just missed 515 pounds back about a month ago when I posted the video. It's down there I was really close to having it. I felt like, I almost had it, and then I started going back down. Well, now I'm thinking about for this meet in April, how I'm going to get into the 520s, because I think that with another month or so of training that I'm really going to be a lot closer to that. And when I did the 515 and I failed on it, I had been training all the way up until that day. Whereas going into this next meet in April, I'm actually going to take some time to kind of reduce my fatigue, and hopefully I'll be able to easily get into the 520s and it won't be a grinder, and I'll also be able to put up good numbers in the bench press and the deadlift. So we'll see. I'll definitely be posting those meets as they come. You guys take it easy, and I'll talk to you in that next video.